last day of Kubecon here in lovely Detroit, Kubecon number 2022. So I'm here with Matt Ray of Kubecost. How you doing?
I'm doing well.
So you made the trip all the way from Australia. That's kind of a hike. You're committed.
It's an epic journey.
Yes.
It's an epic journey.
So now we did an interview back. I think we figured out 4 months ago.
Yeah, that was our summit in Austin.
Yeah, and you had what, maybe 2 weeks on the job or something?
About a month. Yeah.
Okay, and so. What did you know about FinOps going in? So you guys, Kubecost, okay, so first we start with Kubecost, if you just say a one sentence for folks out there who are not familiar.
Right.
And then, yeah, so we'll start with that.
Okay, so Kubecost is a Kubernetes cloud monitoring platform. So you're using Kubernetes, you're on AWS, Azure, GCP, and we take your Kubernetes infrastructure, your cloud bill, and let you figure out who's spending what where. In a nutshell.
Yeah, and then something that I just talked to Joe Daly of FinOps, and this is an area, of course, that used to be sort of black boxy, opaque.
When you get your cloud bill knows nothing about your Kubernetes usage. It just says, you're using you're using EKS, $100, and you've got a bunch of EC2. That's it.
Yeah, and I got to believe as cloud has gotten more granular and it's people looking for spending, and I think last time you told me about this ginormous spreadsheets that AWS will give you.
Gigabytes of spreadsheets.
Yeah, and then people got to turn to Kubernetes and say, where can we take costs out of there? How can we be more efficient? So what was your background before this? Because you didn't...
I didn't have a FinOps background. Yeah,
right.
I've been an engineer. I've done developer relations. I've done product and engineering.
So Puppet early on,
chef,
right? Okay.
Chef
That's big faux pas there. Did I say Puppet? I meant chef.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you were at a Kubernetes
I was at
startup
a small Kubernetes startup before that.
So you got your... So
I got my feet wet in the Kubernetes space, and I got introduced to Webb, the CEO of Kubecost, by Chris A. from the CNCF.
Oh, okay.
And so he made introductions, and we hit it off. I joined up with them. And
Chris A., if you don't know, is Chris Anazik, who is the CTO of the Cloud Native Compute Foundation.
Exactly. And I came out to Austin for the FinOps X conference.
Which is where you're originally from?
Yeah, I'm originally from Austin, not the FinOps conference.
Yes, exactly.
And I took the FinOps Certified Practitioner class while I was there, got a little training. And after we talked, I got my certification. So
I heard you got the highest score ever. You barely passed.
The funny thing is, I did not pass the first time.
Oh, really?
I
won't tell you how many times I had had to take my driver's license when I was a kid.
But they recommended. They said just take it once, get a feel for the test. If you pass, it's great. And I can assure you, the second time, I missed it by probably 1 question, 2 questions.
Yeah, that's what you tell us, but go on.
And then the second time, of course, I blazed through it.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I even took it the same day. I was like,
oh,
that's
wow.
what the test is about?
Okay. When that's the time to do it, while it's fresh in your head, and you can basically, muscle memory or
so
whatever.
And then you get 3 chances. So
wow. Okay, just like baseball.
Yeah. So I knocked it out the park. I got my home run.
Exactly. It was a single, but you squeaked it out to a double, but okay, go on.
And so I got the certified practitioner, and for the last 3 or 4 months with Kubecost, I've been working with our large customers. Seeing people spending millions of dollars a month on Kubernetes in the cloud. It's crazy.
So back to, in a more serious note, on the certification, what is the value of it? Because obviously, if you get a certification that's not backed up by something or people see as a more niche thing, then they don't care. But is it now getting to the point that if you go into a customer and say that they feel more comfortable, or?
I didn't. I don't think there's a strong push for certifications in what we're doing. I don't. A couple of my coworkers are definitely members of the FinOps Foundation. They don't let you join if you're in sales.
Oh,
so if you carry a commission, you're not allowed to join.
Oh, interesting.
Well, which is
discrimination, but anyway, go on. Yeah.
I don't carry a commission, so I was allowed to join and get certified. But, it's not a requirement for what we're doing, but it does show potential employers that you kind of understand the space.
Yeah.
And since I was new to it, I thought, hey, this is a forcing function. Go make yourself take a certification, and that'll make sure that you know what you're talking about. And
so was there a lot that you had to study for it? And learn different things, or is it?
I've been around the industry for a while.
Yeah.
And
He means old, but
Yeah, I'm not just a pretty face.
Yes, exactly. Face for radio, but go on.
I kind of understand. I kind of understood like what was happening behind the scenes. I've done management, I've done sales, so you understand the economics of software.
And you can intuit or triangulate the
Yeah,
part
you
that
could
you
kind
don't.
of figure that stuff out. But it was definitely good. I read the Cloud FinOps book from O'Reilly. That's a good reference.
Yep.
And so I don't know if I needed the class, but reading the book, going through the FinOps website,
Okay, so
that was
once
enough
again,
to
it's
take
that,
the test. Yeah.
forcing function that gets you up to
And
speed.
so if you come to Kubecon or one of the other CNCF conferences, a little pro tip here, they usually send you like a discount code for tests and classes afterwards.
Or they send you discount tickets if you're media.
Well, that's different. But yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, so
software defined talk. It's on your. You can get it on Apple Podcast and Spotify.
wherever you listen to podcasts.
Exactly.
But yeah, so you can go and take the test. It's not very expensive. Get the certification. It shows you should know what you're talking about for a while.
So, as you said, or I can remember you said here or before, but you didn't come with a financial background, right?
No,
It's not. That's what we talked about.
Yeah, have you seen my bank account?
Yeah, exactly. And you don't even manage the money in the family. But so, what have you learned, and what have you? So I'm sure you came in thinking FinOps, and you had a basic idea. What have you learned since you've been there? And I also got to believe that the space is advancing very quickly. So even if you were familiar with it 4 months ago, there's probably a lot that's happened.
Yeah.
So what has been the biggest eye-opening part of it that you were not aware of?
Well, I hadn't worked with a lot of companies doing Kubernetes. My previous employers, I was at a Kubernetes startup, but we didn't have a lot of customers.
Okay.
And but the customers I'm working with now, I see a lot of cross-cloud, multi-cloud customers, people running AWS and Azure and GCP.
Well, that's what I was going to
on-premises.
say
Yeah.
is that with multi-cloud, I got to believe, and we talk about, I figured cloud on purpose versus cloud by default, and I'm not getting it right, but the idea of you sort of end up where you are not by plan. As opposed to going inside, so I can see the multi-cloud kind of happening more.
Kubernetes makes it a lot easier. When everything you do is programmatic, moving between clouds becomes actually kind of reasonable. I mean, if you're managing things by hand or with configuration management, traditional VMs, moving is a lot harder. But
Okay.
once everything is programmatic, like inside of Kubernetes, you can actually kind of choose where you're going to end up on purpose.
So does the facility with which you can do that breed bad practices? In other words, just because you can do it, do people start doing it without really thinking about it because it's easier, or is
Yeah.
or it just helps strategically by definition using Kubernetes
I think most of the customers who are multi-cloud, it is intentional.
by design?
By design.
It's right, yeah.
And
That's what it is, by design, rather as opposed to
accidental.
yeah, exactly.
Like, oops,
Yeah.
oops, I GCP'd.
Yeah.
No, but the customers are not. I mean, of course, they're using Kubecost, so they're saving money.
Of course.
But the nice thing about Kubernetes is it makes it easier to be more portable, but it also makes it easy to, when you start analyzing your usage patterns, be more efficient about them. You can say like, we've got a 30-node cluster. We're only using 10%. Let's drop it to a 10-node cluster, and it'll automatically resize and migrate those workloads. As you slowly bleed out the extra nodes. So it makes it easy to right-size your workloads, put them on the right sizes of nodes. You can adjust the limits of your pods. You can actually be a lot more efficient in your usage automatically.
And I think we talked about this last time, this driving the efficiencies. Do you have a point where you're going to where you get to AI where it says, here's your inefficiencies? You might want to.
It's not even AI, right?
Okay.
It's even
like dead sim like brain dead or something.
it's kind of algorithmic.
Yeah.
There are Kubernetes operators that will dynamically bring nodes on and offline. So you can say, hey, I'm using EC2. If you know, if our density gets above 50%, if our CPU consumption gets this high for this amount of time, spin up an extra node or two. And so those autoscalers will make sure that your node cluster expands or contracts automatically.
Yeah, I got to believe at this point there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that you
There
don't
is.
have to be so sophisticated, but that it's going to get to a place as you start competing and you get better at
Sure,
more
yeah.
granular.
Yeah, but right now it's easy to do. I mean, I wouldn't even call it AI. It's just algorithmic. You when you hit these numbers, add this much. And
Whoa, it costs that much, let's make it cheaper. To make it cheaper, let's do this.
Let's move some to spot instances. Let's move some to, call up your FinOps team, go talk to your account manager and get some reserved instances.
Hey, and that's what I would ask is, how many times do you have a FinOps team and it's a discrete team away from the product team or the platform team, and how many times is it just part of merged? I mean, for example, security, you don't want to have the security team over here. It should be.
Yeah, I think what the customers that I'm mostly dealing with most of them don't have a dedicated FinOps team yet.
Mm-hmm. And is that because it's just early days?
Or they don't have multiple teams,
right?
Or they are the platform team, so they kind of incorporate that element. So they're the platform team, and they might have, for example, I'm working with a game company, and they have a dozen studios. Each studio runs their own infrastructure, their servers and all websites and all that stuff, and then they turn around and they manage the whole Kubernetes outgrowth, and they send them bills for their usage. So they're not a FinOps team; they're the platform team.
Right.
But they've centralized that function, and that's one of the things that the FinOps Foundation, when you get into their recommendations, is you should have a central team that looks over all the cloud properties, because they can centralize your savings.
Okay. So it's a Venn diagram of the way they all fit together?
Yeah, I mean, unlike DevOps, you actually do want a center of excellence.
Okay, well
It's a center of financial excellence,
right.
Yeah.
So then, if we look at Kubernetes as a whole, what developments in that coming do you see as benefiting you as someone who's putting together these ways of analyzing spend, and what things might make it more difficult or make you all more valuable?
We're already well positioned, and I haven't seen anything that is too concerning. I think obviously some of the serverless and WASM stuff will bring.
And for WASM, you want to explain to
WebAssembly, it's a low level, high level, low level,
right? Low code, no code.
Yeah, it's a serverless, a serverless technology for. Not just for Kubernetes, but for anything where you write to a bytecode and it runs it. So write once, run anywhere.
I like that.
Yeah.
I always say someone had it in the past. Maybe I got to think. Maybe Cocoa T. No, let's go with Java on that way. But anyway.
Yeah. So WASM and serverless technologies will bring a lot more fast building. More granular. But even that will probably still roll up into a namespace, or that could be, but we already handle things like, dynamic, spot instances, things coming and going really fast. That's a very common Kubernetes pattern of, instance comes online, it runs a job, it disappears, right? And so we already handle that. I think we're granular enough as it is right now. I think
For now.
Yeah. And we're working, so what we're trying to do is we have a CNCF project that we sponsored called Opencost.
When did you? That was.
That what came out at the FinOps X Open Source Summit. So we contributed a specification and a code, the project that actually implements the spec, called Opencost, and so it's in the CNCF sandbox.
Right.
And that is that's kind of the low level engine that talks to the cloud APIs and Kubernetes and brings.
So foundational to the bit. Okay.
And what we want to do is standardize that layer, right? How you talk to the cloud and how you associate it with your Kubernetes spend, and iron that out for all the different cloud vendors, and anybody who wants to use it, it's Apache licensed.
Yeah.
And so we can all agree on this standard, and then we can focus on
differentiate on top of it.
optimization,
Yeah.
reporting, projecting,
Support, service support, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other thing is, speaking of open source, you talked about now how you're getting more in that space since we last talked. So what's that all about?
So we announced the project back in June, and a lot of work was put into it, and now I'm kind of starting to transition to work on it more on behalf of the company.
Would you be a community manager type of thing? Are you looking?
I don't know what I'm going to do yet. But
as the need arises, stay agile.
Yeah. So I'm getting more involved in the Kubecost project, and so we've Kubecost has we've got a website, obviously. We got a Slack channel on
Opencost.io.
Yeah, opencost.io, and we got a Slack channel on CNCF. We've got a new Google group that we started up in case you like your old mailing list.
Yeah.
And of course we have a calendar and a fortnightly working group meeting.
Okay. And so how many people are members now, and how is that? Have you seen any growth?
Yeah. So at launch,
early days.
at launch, I think there were 11 logos at launch. So we had AWS and Adobe and GCP. And,
Okay. So some
Red Hat,
household names. Yeah.
Yeah, real companies.
Yeah.
And we've seen interest from a lot more since then. So we're definitely starting to see companies adopt Kubecost as a standard. Companies like Vantage and a few others have started to. Microsoft's got documentation about Kubecost, so we're starting to see it establish itself as the de facto cost reporting standard for Kubernetes.
Cool. So, and then another thing is, as we see it grow, do you see it merging with this function, or it will be integrated into that, or vice versa? So it's not going to be sort of a standalone thing. The person who does X and Y will also be there.
And I mean that's what Kubecost does. We take this and then we add more value on top of it. But
say with the tool chain, is there something that you would be integrated?
That's for the working group to sort out, right?
Okay,
so right now what we do is we do CPU, RAM, GPU, storage. Pull that together and say, here's your allocations, here's your spend. That's in a nutshell. That's today. It's got a V1 API. We've had requests for, can you guys take a stab at serverless? Can you take a stab at this? So, we have some, we're still kind of debating the definition of idle.
Yeah, I'm sure anything that people can get measured, they want.
And so we will continue to iterate over it, and hopefully we'll move out of the sandbox into incubating projects. So we've got a lot of work ahead for Kubecost.
But would there be something like you would integrate with the, something like a CI/CD pipeline? You want to be a part of it, and so no longer is Kubecost or the concept of that a standalone thing. It is part of Jenkins or that kind of.
Yeah, I mean that's up to your CI/CD vendors. They might say hey, if you deployed this and here's your billing as we're running. That's what we want to be. We just want to be a tool that you drop into those tool
Acquisition. Someone says we need this for our portfolio, and they take it and they put you in there.
Well,
I can either.
Now you're crossing the lines between a CNCF project and.
Yeah, right. So, but you all as a company, where would you see yourself? Okay, I guess two things. One is
what's Kubecost up to?
Yeah. Well, before we get there, what is biggest besides just getting more granular? What is the next thing that FinOps really needs to tackle if it's going to reach its potential? It's obviously going to change.
I mean, FinOps is growing like crazy. Like the number of people in the community. You had Joe Daly on. I'm sure he had real numbers. I'm just like
he made them up as well. But go on.
But they're growing. They're growing.
Yeah.
Like astronomically. And what we'll start to see is it becomes an established practice in a lot more organizations, and they'll start going to the right tools for the right jobs, and we're the right tool for Kubernetes. And what we're doing at Kubecost is we've got Kubecost as open source. Kubecost is free for all users. That allows anybody running Kubernetes on any cloud can just spin up a Kubecost to see what they're doing and get 14 days of storage and reporting and recommendations for how to optimize your infrastructure. And then what we still have enterprise, if you want to see all your clusters in one place, if you want more storage, if you want support, we still trying to make some money somewhere, but we also
Right.
have a SaaS coming. And so, if you don't want to manage these things, you can push it into the SaaS. So we've got, and then of course, we'll start getting into more automated optimizations
Right.
and more recommendations.
That's when you get into AI.
People keep saying AI. I'm going to keep calling it machine learning.
Well, I was gonna do the AI,
or
ML.
good ML,
Yeah.
or just good algorithms. Yeah.
Well, there you go. So, how many of the people that you hear from, customer types, are panicked because their SVP or their CEO said, I have no idea what's in this black box. You guys
Well, that's why
need
we
to...
give it away, right? We give
Yeah.
it away because people are like, they're looking for a quick answer. I'm like, hey, get started with this.
So, I mean, how much is it top down versus bottom up? Where so you're doing it, you're realizing, man, it would be really good if I could...
I would say it's probably about 75% bottom up.
Mm-hmm.
So we've partnered with Amazon where we offer Kubecost for free for all EKS users.
Oh, wow.
And so, eventually, in the AWS console, you'll be able to just hit a check mark, give me a Kubecost.
Oh, that's great.
And so that's very organic. That's very low level. Just you've got a cluster running. If you want to click over into our UI, you can see how much it's costing.
So you do it by design, so they don't have to really think about it.
Yeah,
It's just part of it.
I mean, you're not going to have a CEO come in give me Kubecost.
Right.
They're probably saying, what's going on, and
Right.
eventually you'll end up.
And
with
you're
us.
thinking, what can I use to figure it out? And,
Yeah.
Interesting. So if somebody were new to this space, and I know this space is growing, and kind of like security, it's a place that if you go in, it has great need. Yes, exactly. What would you say to people about, hey, this is how you should get started, either wanting to get into this space as a practitioner, or also, if I'm using that correctly, or people who want to start using this? How would they get? Yeah, because I bet there's some people that are like, oh, I would like to use it, but I'm a deer in the headlights and I don't really know.
Well, we make it pretty easy to get started. If you go to Kubecost.com, click on the install button, and it's a Helm chart. So if you're a savvy enough Kubernetes user to use a Helm chart, within about 5 minutes, it'll install our service into your infrastructure, into your Kubernetes. Look at the cloud APIs, start reporting back numbers. Give it 48 hours, and it'll actually have your real bill.
Yeah.
But it's pretty low impact, and you can start getting results immediately. And then you just start exploring the recommendations. I didn't realize that we had 300 pods that weren't actually doing anything. That kind of stuff.
That kind of, the transparency into what you're doing. And so you said in the future you'll have it, what you would hope is that you'd be part of EKS, and it would just be a button you push. At this point, you're saying if they're familiar with Kubernetes, would there be people who in parallel, if they're putting in DevOps, if they're putting in Kubernetes, they would do it at the same time?
Yeah.
Or is it this, okay, so it's not,
I mean, we've got enough community awareness that a lot of people are just like, of course you're going to just throw Kubecost on it. It just becomes like a little default kind of check mark because it's free.
So Matt Ray, thank you so much. A pleasure as always.
Thank you very much.
All right.